Hi everyone and welcome to the 5th episode of Season 2 of the A Bit of AI show. In this episode we will talk with Matthew about his life in AI. Hi everyone and welcome to the 5th episode of Season 2 of the A Bit of AI show. This episode we will talk with Matthew about his life in AI. And my name is Henk Boelman. I'm a white male with brown hair wearing glasses, and today I'm wearing a red shirt with the words "Hey friends" on it.
And my name's Amy Boyd. I'm a female with long blonde hair, and today I'm wearing a simple white t-shirt.
Once again, welcome. Yeah, no black this season.
No, yeah, that was only what we were told, wasn't it? Because otherwise I'll blend into the background. That's hard in the winter, Hank. We've spoken about this.
Exactly. So I'm wearing red this season. So once again, welcome to the A Bit of AI show. This show is all about the story from people behind AI. Because in our jobs we meet many people from around the globe and realize that there are so many different skilled people involved in creating an AI solution. From pre-sales and consultancy to creating the deep neural networks itself and running them in production. This is the 5th episode and we couldn't be more excited to start talking to our guests and learn more what they do in AI. And as always, everything is available on our website, abitofai.show. So let's get started and invite Matthew to the screen. Hi, Matthew.
How's it going?
Very good, very good. Thank you so much for joining us. Going a little bit pixelated, I can see that. Very, very awkward. But yeah, Matthew, it's so good to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's jump straight into it. You know what this show's like. We don't have a lot of time, but we want to make sure that we highlight you front and center of this show. So less about the tech, more about the people in it. Tell us who you are and what you do in the space of AI.
Excellent. So my name is Matthew Renzi. I am a data science consultant, author, and public speaker. I'm also a Microsoft MVP in artificial intelligence. And for the visually impaired, I'm a white male with dark facial features, and I have a gray shirt, gray polo suit jacket on right now. And within the AI space, I spend most of my time educating people about AI now. Earlier in my career, I was doing more hands-on stuff, but now I've kind of moved to more of a strategic advising level and an educational space. So I spend most of my time essentially teaching people how to leverage artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data science in order to either make better decisions as human beings or help machines make better decisions on their own.
Nice one. Gosh, you're very... I like that. I like that you've already talked about that move from sort of, oh yeah, no, like once you've been hands-on, actually there's so many people out there we want to get hands-on that education piece and strategy piece is so important. And you work for a consultancy. Is that your own consultancy? Is that a specific?
Yes. Yeah, I'm the owner of Renzi Consulting, which is a small data science consulting firm that we've shifted. As I kind of shifted from data science more into artificial intelligence. That's where the demand seems to be and where my unique skill set seems to be most well leveraged, is essentially helping organizations transition from a world of non-data science, like, you know, they're working on their IT infrastructure, getting them a foundation of data science. And then after they've got a foundation of data, transitioning them into artificial intelligence and machine learning, helping them to figure out how to automate a data science pipeline, if you will.
Wonderful. Gosh, yeah, so a real end to end. There's lots to cover there. And actually, maybe our next question will highlight some of that. So we know that all jobs in the industry are different daily. I think it's just part of the tech industry in some senses. But can you describe to us, like, what does an average day in Matthew's life look like when he logs onto his laptop in the morning? What do you get up to?
Well, I'm the kind of person that gets really bored doing the same thing every day. So I've specifically built my consulting firm to create a wide diversity of things that I have to do every day. So really depends upon the day. Like some days I'm essentially delivering a webinar for a client. So I'm essentially prepping, getting everything ready to go. Other days I'm consulting for a client. So I'm actually either on site or in the middle of a pandemic, I'm doing it remotely over over Zoom or something like that. So I'll be essentially helping the client kind of better understand what they're doing in terms of their business and AI strategy, things like that. Some days I'm building prototypes. So if a client is trying to solve a problem and they don't have the staff that can help them solve that problem using AI and machine learning, data science, then I will actually prototype the system out to prove that it's possible to do it, get some kind of benchmark for like, okay, only spending, a day or two on this problem. Here's where I'm at right now. So I think this is possible. And I think if you guys, put more into it, we could get it up to this kind of level of performance. And then other days, I'm essentially creating online content, either writing articles, creating online courses, or videos or something along those lines. And essentially just trying to help people learn about AI without charging any money for it. Just trying to spread the knowledge to everyone as best as I can.
Yeah, you're really active in the AI community as well, right? Like me and Henk, I think I've met you out and about at all different conferences. Is that something you're kind of personally passionate about? But I guess you can merge that with your work as well, which is really cool because everyone's looking for a little bit of help, right?
Yeah. So once again, I'm kind of in this unique space where I just really like doing a bunch of different things and not focusing on one thing too in depth. Otherwise, like I said, I just kind of get bored of it and then I want to move on to the next more interesting thing. So I do a lot of speaking at conferences and teaching at workshops as well too. And also, I probably should have mentioned this too. I'm also the president of a nonprofit organization called Serenity Global. Our mission is to essentially try improving access technology education. So improving access to technology education for underrepresented individuals. So essentially helping people who don't have either the financial means or access to learn how to do artificial intelligence, data science, machine learning, or general software development, help them get the education that they need so that they can improve their lives, their families, and their communities.
That's incredible. That's really, really worthy cause, and to give someone the power of knowledge as well, like give them the opportunity and the access to learn. That's really, really cool stuff.
Yeah, I think when I look back through my career, the realization was that I had a lot of help along the way. People helped me overcome obstacles at kind of each phase of my career. And had it not been for these people who just went out of their way with the kindness of their hearts to help me out, I wouldn't have the career that I have and I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in. So I feel it's my duty and responsibility to pay it back to the next generation through technology education, because that's essentially how I got to where I am, is by tech education.
Yeah, no, I always use that phrase, especially in women in tech. I'm very passionate about women in tech myself, and that kind of element of pay it forwards. So as much as there's elements where I'm like, oh, I wish like I'd had this at school, like when we do great things with girls in STEM at school or something like that. But actually, there's also that element of saying, like you said, for that one person who made IT exciting for me by just scouring the news and showing how important it was to sort of everyday life, I always think, like those are the people you kind of go, I need to be that person for someone else sort of thing. I need to get them really, really passionate about this space. So that's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. That's an interesting side to the many sides of what you do. So that kind of leads us to our next question is, how did you get there?
So it was a long journey. I've been in the tech industry for over 20 years now. I got my start building websites in the geospatial information systems industry. So essentially, we built one of the first web applications that ended up becoming I think it's actually the largest geospatial information system website for government entities in the United States. So it's a massive system. So we were essentially doing big data before big data was a thing, really shipping hard drives through the mail in order to get the data from the clients in order to build, these property management system, the websites and stuff like that. And then after that, I got into the IoT space before the Internet of Things was a buzzword. So I was essentially doing energy management for infrastructure. So I had my software in like the United States Capitol complex, the Harvard Business School, a whole bunch of different places. Like everyone would know, my software was in there collecting the data so that the rest of the software for the company could analyze it for energy efficiency and improve it and stuff like that. So after that, I a ceiling with where I could go with the education that I had. So I decided to go back to college, and then going back to college, I completed double degrees in computer science and philosophy with a minor in economics, with a focus on artificial intelligence and machine learning. After that, I got into data science consulting because everything that I was most interested in fell in the space of AI and like data science and machine learning. So I started doing consulting in the AI space, and then I got a data science specialization through Johns Hopkins. And now I'm actually starting my master's degree in artificial intelligence at Johns Hopkins as well. And so when I get through all of this next transition, I'm probably going to be spending almost all of my time in the AI space with a foundation of data science built on top of an IT kind of big data infrastructure space.
Love that. You basically just reinvent yourself like across all those things, right? When big data was it, then when IoT was first it, then into data science, and now into AI. That's just phenomenal. You must have quite a natural learning ethic in everything you do.
Well, interestingly, I was a terrible student through high school and the first time through college. But then when I kind of realized how important it was to have this education, I got really good at it, especially math. So I was a terrible math student. Mm-hmm. And then the second time around with college, I literally started over. I started over with algebra. I worked my way up through trigonometry, analytic geometry, into calculus 2, calculus 3, and then linear algebra, a whole slew of different types of math. And when I came out on the other end of it, I was like, the math isn't actually as difficult as I thought it was if you're willing to like invest the time in it. And so that kind of helped me realize that, maybe I'm not a bad student after all. Maybe I'm actually a good student. And I kind of adopted a mindset of continuous learning for the rest of my. This was right around the same time I was really getting into agile software development. And, the agile kind of philosophy is this continuous learning cycle. And I just realized that in order to be adaptable, you have to be continuously learning. And now it's literally the philosophy of my life. Like I run experiments constantly. In fact, I'm running experiments right now with how to boil the perfect egg. And I'm running experiments with blood glucose monitors. I just run experiments with every aspect of my life anymore.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I sometimes go about data science. Someone's like, what is it about data science? And I'm like, I really want to describe myself for anyone who might be a Sherlock Holmes fan. Obviously, it's based in the UK. It's based in London. I'm always like, I feel like you have to be the Sherlock Holmes of data science. Like you have to want to solve problems in some senses or ask a question and prove it's true sort of thing, or consider all the different elements of it. And data science and AI and math are like all of those things almost like mixed together. And Henk,
I think having a natural curiosity is one of the necessary conditions for being a good data scientist. You have to be interested in about how the world works and want to find ways to understand how the world works. And that combination of those desires essentially leads you to a set of tools that help you to answer these questions better than any other tools you found out there. And that just happens to be this data science thing.
Cool. So everything you just talk seems like really, really exciting. Like everything you do is fun. Even math was fun. But I want to know, what is your most annoying thing about your current role in AI?
So the most annoying thing, now this is going to be tough because there's actually a lot of things I find annoying about AI. I'm just going to list a couple of them, and these are all in like the top 5. So number 1, lack of transparency in complex models. Like it is really difficult to tease out why a deep neural network is making a decision unless you have really good explainable AI tools, or your brain is as powerful as a supercomputer in order to understand the weights of the neurons and stuff like that. The second thing is that AI is essentially like I think the best analogy is it's like a really dumb intern. So it's really good at doing kind of a very narrow set of things, but you always have to babysit it. It's just, it can't handle a lot of variation to, conditions, novel conditions and stuff like that. So you're constantly baby AI tools. I think most people have this misunderstanding that once we build this AI system, we just let it run forever and we don't have to maintain or monitor it. And it's just not true. Like, you are constantly babysitting these things. But in the same way that you have to oversee a team of interns doing a bunch of little tasks, you can use that as a force multiplier in order to do a whole bunch of work with much fewer people essentially overseeing the process rather than doing each of those steps hands-on. And then I think the third thing is there's just general misunderstandings about AI that I probably spend a good chunk of my consulting time just clearing up, because the media has misportrayed artificial intelligence and what it can and can't do. And because there's a bunch of snake oil salespeople out there essentially making promises that just aren't realistic, I spend a lot of my time essentially just cleaning up the mess that the media and the snake oil salesmen have created in the industry.
Excellent. So one quick follow-up question then after that is, what is the most exciting thing? You can name one thing.
Once again, this is just one. Can I do?
Yeah, just one.
Just
There's
one.
so many exciting things. Okay, so in that case, oh God, that's so tough. This is one of my top three, but self-supervised learning. I just think this idea of using structural aspects of the data in order to train a model without having to label all of the data is extremely powerful and is going to lead to some of the most impressive models that we've ever seen. In fact, it already has. Like, you look at GPT-3, you look at all of the latest deep learning vision tools. They're all using self-supervised learning in order to train the foundational layers of the network, and then they use labeled data on top of it in order to train the more specific task.
Amazing. Wonderful. So we are going to move on to our quickfire round. Matthew, how are you feeling about that? We just discussed it before this in our prep session. You don't know the questions, but the only thing we ask is that you answer with the first thing that comes to mind, and try not to, if you can, to make it more than about a sentence long. Does that sound okay?
Okay. First thing that comes to mind, and no more than a sentence long.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, if you're ready, we'll kick off and Henk will alternate questions. So probably a fairly easy one. Let's head down memory lane here. What was your first computer?
An Atari 800.
Very nice.
What programming language was used in the last project you worked on?
I can't answer that. Well, it's a combination of C# and Python, and that's why I wasn't sure which one I should say. So.
Interesting though. So one of our most popular answers, and probably one that's not been as popular on this show. So that's interesting, seeing them work together. Very nice. What is the most useful thing you have learned in AI?
Most useful thing I've learned in AI. The actual definition of intelligence is probably the most useful thing I've ever learned. So artificial intelligence is essentially anything that can perceive its environment. Oh, this has to be rapid fire. Sorry.
I'm gonna break our rules here because I feel like this is useful for our audience. So go ahead, go and tell us what you mean by your interpretation of intelligence.
So it's anything that can perceive its environment and choose actions that maximize the expected likelihood of achieving a goal of some kind. And it's that maximizing expected likelihood thing that's probably the most important there.
Interesting. And strangely, the way you describe that literally makes me think of reinforcement learning, like everything about it: goal, choice of actions, do I
Perception
optimize or do I explore type thing, or exploit or explore. Very, very interesting. That's a good one. That's a very good one. Thank you. Anyway, back to the game. So only a sentence, only a word, but that was useful. So we'll allow it.
Yeah. What is your favorite event on the AI calendar?
The Microsoft MVP Global Summit, when we have all the AI experts get together.
Nice. What area of AI is on your list to skill up on next?
Going deeper into reinforcement learning.
Interesting. Yeah. A lot of people have mentioned that. Reinforcement learning has come up so much in season 2, more than season 1. So maybe it's a timing thing. Not sure. There we go. Fun fact.
And what was the first thing, project or skill you built in AI?
Let's see. This would have been in college. It would have been. I did a what is it? An intelligent force-directed graph layout algorithm.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us a like how is that used now type thing?
So imagine you've got a graph, a bunch of nodes and edges, all interconnected, of a high number of nodes and edges, and you want to figure out, visualize it in a way that maximizes the information gained from that projection of the data. So essentially, we use equations from physics that are literally a tension and a a tension and a force outwards as well too. And those balance out in a equilibrium in a way that maximizes the visualization of that graph.
Wow. Well, that's proof you can definitely get into the math at some point.
Interestingly, the math was really simple for that. I thought it was going to be like really tough, but it's actually just two physics equations combined, and then the algorithm just does all the work for you.
I love that. And that is actually the end of our quickfire round. So thank you, Matthew, for taking on the quickfire round. And also, you gave us some really interesting answers as well. Some that were, like I said, very, very popular, and then other ones that were just quite different. And yeah, I'm glad we broke our rules. We're quite strict here on the A Bit of AI show. Hardly. But to kind of give us that description of intelligence, because that was a really interesting thing. Like, some people have told us sort of like, you know, mine, I always said when me and Henk created that question, I was like, literally, it's that shortcut function, which I always forget, which is really bad, to format JSON in Visual Studio Code, because I just feel like everything is a JSON output and you have to format it really quickly, and it just does it for you. So when it's really, really long JSON coming from services, that's always super useful. But one thing I just wanted to very briefly, just before we wrap up, follow up on is a lot of what we've talked about in this segment has been learning. And as you mentioned, your kind of progress to where we are today, a lot of it was about really like throwing yourself into a completely new technology by the sounds of it, and running with it. So I was wondering, could you share with us what your learning approach is for a new technology? Like, do you have like a way that you go about learning about something?
Well, I think it's always the path of least resistance approach I take as the kind of general architecture of how I learn something new. And so then that will change widely depending upon what the path of least resistance is. It'll often start with looking, no joke, I go to Wikipedia and I just look at the definitions in order to understand the high level concepts. I know a lot of academics are like, oh no, Wikipedia is a bad place to go. I disagree. I think it's a great place to go first in order to get the lay of the land. And then I'll go to a series of videos to learn about it. I'm not really big, and you probably hate me saying this, but I'm not really big into using podcasts to learn like a new technology or anything. But I do use a lot of online courses and books still for certain types of things. Things like in math that I just find I can only learn if I've got a textbook in front of me. But then other things like reinforcement learning, I learn much better from videos or playing around with code. And then the final step is essentially practice. No matter what anyone tells you, practice is probably the single most important thing to learning anything beyond a superficial knowledge that's just enough to get you to shoot yourself in the foot. So practice, and trying to come up with little projects that I can do to learn a new technology. I think Kaggle is a great website in order to learn how to do, if I'm trying to learn a new data science technique or a new machine learning model, I'll find some data set there, play around with it, see what works, see what doesn't, see if I can get close to the leaders on the leaderboard in terms of their performance score and stuff like that. And then also educating others through the use of educating myself. So a lot of the courses that I create are essentially things I wanted to learn that I got to expert level in terms of my knowledge. So then I teach it to someone else to get me that last kind of like 10% that you wouldn't know unless you were creating a course or creating a presentation about it or a workshop. And then I use that to teach others. So it's a combination of all of these different techniques that essentially lead to learning these new technologies. But I always try following that path of least resistance to get me there.
I love that. No. Thank you for sharing, because I think it is useful to hear from people who, definitely people who pick up technology very quickly, or just that it's doable, right? Like if you want to learn about something, go find that path of least resistance within the time, there is only 24 hours in a day, but, to just be able to start learning about something. Well, Matthew, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure to speak to you all about your consulting, about the variety in your role, as well as the variety in your career and the variety in your learning. And thank you for taking on our quickfire questions also. I know they're nerve-wracking, but you did a wonderful job.
Thank you for having me.
All right. No problem. We'll see you shortly. Amazing. So, Henk, another guest down in our 5th episode of A Bit of AI. Quick announcement for this week. So the Global AI Student Conference is happening on the 16th of October, so in just a couple of days, at aiconf.education. It's 8 hours of content by students, but it's actually for everyone. So it doesn't matter who you are, what level you are. It's just actually that the students are going to be delivering some phenomenal content. So things like panels, sessions, demos. It's going to be one of those exciting conferences. So if you want to go get registered, go get signed up for the 16th of October. Henk, I know you're kind of working with the Global AI Student Conference. How are you feeling about it?
We are actually going to pick the agenda tomorrow. So I'm excited because we are going to go to the CFP. There was a public CFP, so I'm really excited to see what our students have submitted. And then we will go and form the schedule.
That's great. Gosh. Okay, wonderful. Well, so that is the Global AI Student Conference on the 16th of October. Find it at aiconf.net. So aiconf as in conf.education. And with that, we only have a moment left. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really hope you've enjoyed the show. Another guest, another perspective, another role, and another day in the life of here on the A Bit of AI show. Catch all of our episodes on demand, including season 1 at abitofai.show. And with that, thank you so much for watching. This has been A Bit of AI show with Henk and Amy.
See you next week.